So, I'm going to go ahead and jump in and introduce what we're talking about today and what we're doing. I am so excited to have Jessica Nobles here today from Home Care Ops. I will give her a real proper introduction momentarily here. But before I do that, I just want to mention one thing real quick. You've probably been on a lot of Zooms in the last 3 years, but just in case, at the bottom of the screen, there is a little button that says Q&A. And I would love for you, as we're talking here today and as you're listening in on the conversation, get involved. We love questions. We want to hear from you and what you want to know about. We're going to be talking about mastering recruitment, and Jessica's got a lot of great information to share, but also I'm sure you will have questions. And we've got 45 minutes today, so we're not going to have all the answers. We're going to get the conversation going and hopefully leave you with one or two tips of things that you might be able to do differently related to recruiting to help improve your results. So use the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom screen, chat in your questions, and I do have my colleague Sam here as well. Thank you, Sam, from Augusta, who's going to be monitoring that chat and and teeing up questions that are relevant. Either that, or if it's something simple, maybe he'll answer it right in the chat there too. So with that, let me give Jessica a proper intro. So Jessica Nobles is a serial entrepreneur and recognized as home care's industry-leading business operations coach. And she is an experienced home care agency owner and net profit expert. She's bootstrapped her own agency from the ground up to a multi-state, multi-million-dollar business and did it under 2 years. Very impressive. And now she is the co-founder of Home Care Ops. She and her husband, Clint, have united the industry's largest network of non-medical home care agency owners. And together they help home care agency owners simplify operations, leverage the power of a team managed agency to increase profit, reduce their workload, and grow their businesses without overwhelm, which is like the hard part, right? Without overwhelm. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
And like, let's just, I literally, whenever people introduce me, I always just like, I want to break it down to like real human language. I love that. Thank you so much. I feel like I should fan myself and like blush all at the same time.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I'm a home care owner. I've been a home care owner for 17 years, but I've made a
Yeah.
lot of really dumb mistakes and I made some really good ones along the way. So I then took that knowledge and I'm now sharing it with other home care owners. People like to call me a coach, and I'm still like, I'm your champion. I want to be your guide. I want to help you to avoid the mistakes that I have made. But I want to help you to get to success a whole lot less faster than I did. And so that's what I do. And on that path, we have a really big community. We have over 9,000 home care owners in our social community, and then we have over 13,000 like plug into training and coaching and just all kinds of free stuff that we put out there to help home care owners to just having profitable, they did know how to run a profitable business that's straightforward, it's scalable and sustainable. So like
Hmm.
I have probably sat where many of you are right now, where you are in your business. And I get it, I understand it, and I love giving back and sharing because I'm growing and learning while I'm doing that.
And
And
I love it. And I'm so glad that you're here and sharing some of your knowledge today because it's like such a super, super valuable resource. And so I know everybody listening is going to be really excited for some of your takeaways.
ah,
So,
thank you. And I
yeah,
love being here. I love what you and your entire team, not only what you do, like the solutions that you give are amazing, but also just the level of professionalism and solutions focused service. It really is incredible. So thank you for that.
thank you. And just a quick background on me and Augusta, if you are a first time listener, I guess, and haven't heard of Augusta before, what my company does is we have developed what we call Home Care's first caregiver applicant matching platform. So the platform, it automatically identifies and ranks the best candidates for your agency and get more of them to interviews. And ultimately, our customers, they grow their scheduled hours and their weekly billable hours as a result of getting more of the right people into the pipeline, into their company. So, in my background, just 1 minute on that. I started as a caregiver. That was my first work in the industry, and is what made me passionate about this. And that was back in 2009, if you can believe that. Feels like a lifetime ago. And since then, have basically only been working in services and solutions related to senior care. So it's literally my whole life. Um,
I just want to say, not that we're here to put in a plug, and you definitely did not say to do this, but I think it's important to note that the solution that you offer, it couldn't be created by someone just wanting to create software, right? It literally is by someone who has been in the trenches, that they've been on the receiving side of, if only this was a thing, if only we had this, if only I could have avoided that. And that is so reflective within the solution that you guys have created. So I think the level of experience and knowledge, and probably hard knocks that it took to create the solution that you guys have, I feel like it's a worthy mention here.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that. And I mean, same to you, with the way that, I mean, literally having gone through the trenches yourself and built a business in this industry, and being able to share all that is incredible. So,
Well, thank
thank you.
you.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to dive in, and like
Yes.
for everybody listening, if you have questions, or maybe you've like been in the trenches and you're like, if only I had this, or if only it was like this, or if I avoided that, you can put it in the Q&A. Like, it doesn't even have to
Yeah.
be a question. Let us know.
Yeah. Love it. Awesome. Okay. So my first question for you. So you've given all sorts of talks, sessions, educational programming on recruiting in the past. One of the things that you've talked about before is the difference between filling a shift and building a high performing team. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what that means and why that's important.
Yeah. So, whenever I was first starting my home care business, I hired based off of when I needed someone. Like, if I had an open shift, I would hire a caregiver, or I was like, I need to get a few more clients, so I need to hire more caregivers. Like, recruiting was very reactionary. And what we found, that if you do reactionary recruiting, then you have a lot of reactionary fires you're constantly putting out. And so after several years of just doing reactionary recruiting, I was at a very, very frustrated point of stuck and stall. Was having a lot of turnover, a lot of miscommunication. I felt like I was going to have to compromise on quality, to be able to scale it all, just due to my recruiting funnel just wasn't really a recruiting funnel. And whenever I took a step back and I was like, okay, what is the difference in a home care? Because home care has so much turnover. What is the difference between home care and even like looking at a fast food restaurant? And it was that we were so reactionary, we were always looking to fill a shift. And I actually walked into a hospitality restaurant, I think it was like Jack's, and on the back of the door was like a visual career path of, you start here and then you go here to here to here on the back of their bathroom door. And I thought, that's what's missing, is we are not recruiting to build incredible teams. We're recruiting to fill shifts. And so our motto with our recruitment become, we recruit to retain. And we took our recruiter and said, look, I want you to do away with just the recruiting mentality, and I want you to have a team development mentality. Your role title is now called team developer. We recruit to retain. And if you are interviewing someone that you're like, oh, they'll do in a pinch, but no way do we want them for a while, I would rather communicate with the clients that we currently have a waiting list, or we're going to have an altered schedule of care while we compile their quality dedicated team. Because filling shifts is a patchwork. Building high performing teams is intentional. It's the difference between running in circles and running a scalable business. So that's why we have that mentality of recruit to retain. And we're not in the business of providing quality care. We're in the business of building high-performing teams that deliver the quality care. So it starts with the teams. The quality care is just the outcome.
I love that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just like, yes, yes, yeah, preaching to the choir here. But that's incredible. I mean, I think it's such a good distinction um, that of being in the build. This is the literal, the meat and the heart of this business is building the high performing team, and then the outcome is the quality care. Because if
Yeah,
you've done that well, then the quality care is just a natural
yeah,
um, progression, natural outcome of that. I think that's a really, really important difference and really speaks to how recruiting is a system,
yes.
um, and not just like that thing that you urgently have to do because somebody's hair is on fire.
Hmm.
So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Um, so relatedly, in that like kind of push and pull between, oh my gosh, I have these shifts I want to fill, and I also understand and recognize the difference between being very intentional and growing this high performing team. You've probably seen a lot of mistakes along the way. Could you
Yeah.
share maybe some of the top mistakes that you've seen?
Yeah, I would like to say I've seen these mistakes. I didn't do them myself, but I totally done them myself.
Yeah.
So, first off, I think it just starts with thinking small. Like, it really, and a lot of times we like to hear these big things like they didn't do this, and this, and it's all tactical. But a lot of it starts with mindset. We think too small. We're relying on desperation hires. We're ignoring culture within the business and not really treating recruitment like an ongoing process because once again we're thinking small, we're not thinking about the overall bigger scalable consistent picture, we're just thinking about we have a hole, let's fill the gap. So it's thinking small, and then by thinking small we're not really building out those processes, and it goes back to that reactionary mindset. We're only focusing on immediate needs instead of fixing the system. And I'm sure whenever we said, like, you build a high performing team, that sounds really good. What does that actually mean? How do you build high performing teams of individual caregivers? Because it's not like we're having team huddles every morning. And that goes to your systems. The way that you acquire and onboard your clients, yes, your caregivers are your clients. You can tell them they can in a marketing standpoint. But when the way that you onboard and the way that you acquire them, the process and system, the funnel or the journey that you bring your applicants through from applicant to with you for 90 days as a caregiver, that matters. It sets expectations. So the biggest mistake that I really see is because we're thinking smaller or we're thinking reactionary, we're not actually putting systems in place, systems that are simple. Um, whenever you put together a system, you can put a system together, and everybody has a system. It may suck right now and it may have gaps, but once you say, okay, this is the path of which we're going to do, you can then identify constraints, and then you can begin to simplify it. So often we put out a job ad that goes to a 10-page job application that they don't even get through. And then if we don't respond to them quick enough, we lose them. There's so many places within the caregiving funnel or like the caregiver journey that will add constraint or it adds a gap, that if we don't have that simple, repeatable, simple process, we work so much harder at just getting them in. And a lot of times that's also reflective that we probably don't have a really good nurture system for actually retaining them. So because of that, we're in the constant cycle of panic of hiring and then balancing the burnout that that causes. And so, and that's the biggest thing. But I would say for those that have systems, the second thing would be they're not truly understanding or selling the opportunity of being a professional care provider. Therefore,
Mm.
they have a really big struggle of um, really capturing the attention of quality people. You can't have quality hires unless you attract quality people. And that goes to the value proposition of how we really put our job ads and our messaging out there.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's a really good point of the messaging and the way the job is presented and the value that you're offering to this potential employee has to match what you're looking for at that ultimate outcome that you want. I think that's a really interesting point. And yeah, I mean, I think for a lot of people, going back to what you were saying at the beginning, I think for a lot of people at when you're starting your business and you're in it every day, it is so hard to zoom out and like look at the big picture and realize I either I don't have a system or to be able to see what the bottlenecks are in the
Mm-hmm.
system.
Yeah.
One of the two. So I think that thinking big about it is like such a important point,
Yeah. And
for
it really
sure.
is it's a daily discipline, and people don't see
Yeah.
recruitment as a daily discipline. Like there has to be a daily focus to the recruitment part of it and a daily discipline to actually communicating effectively the benefits of being a professional care provider is. So too often we just don't put in that simple, consistent, this is what we're doing on a daily basis. This is what we're doing on a weekly basis as a team to support recruitment and support the messaging that's going to be the key to retention.
Hmm. Yep, definitely. Yeah, I see that problem a lot when I talk to home care agencies, that it's like they want to turn on and off their ads, their everything. But what you're saying in reality is it's something that, and I guess actually this hope this is okay to ask, but in your when you were building your business, or now that after some experience maybe of doing it, when you talk about it as a daily activity, does that mean like literally that every single day there's somebody being interviewed?
Um,
Or
not every day do we like did we interview someone. Now,
yeah.
as we grew, we definitely that was a requirement that
Hmm.
it had to happen just to meet the demand. But every day or every week. And so like our internally when just I was doing, I'll start from when I was just doing it, and then we'll kind of scale up a little bit because it is different at different levels. But for me, for recruitment, I knew I couldn't take my eye like off the goal of recruitment just because I was in the weeds of delivering. So I set a standard that I call the 2 by 2 by 2. And I use this principle for recruiting, my schedulers, my marketers. But for recruitment, I did a total of 6 small intentional touch points every single week that I felt like I could maintain because it only took about 2 to 3 hours combined. But 2 by 2 by 2, I would reach out to two two people or sources that I thought could be a good source of applicants for me. I would just reach out and say, "Hey, I wanted to introduce myself. If you know anyone who um, would really be good in this profession, send them my way." Or I would reach out to people that I either saw on Facebook, Facebook groups, and I know that's truly organic and that's slow go, but that's what I did. Or I would post a post in our on our community forums and say, "Hey, I'm looking for this." I would do two touch point actions that were in like a community standpoint, and then I would reach out to two applicants that maybe it had been a little while since I had heard from them, or they had applied a little bit ago, right? And I would
Hmm.
reach out to them and say, "Hey, I want to reach out to you. I know you applied." Have that just conversation. And then I would reach out to two of my existing caregivers and I would say, "Hey, how's it going? Is there any way that I could support you? We're always looking for a good hire." And I would incentivize them. If they would send me someone and we hired them, I would give them a monetary bonus. And every single week, I found that if I was doing that, I would have a constant flow of applicants. Back then, I wasn't even using Indeed or any software to make it quicker. It was just
Yeah.
all very manual. And I set interview times every single week. So I knew this is a reserved interview time. I know I will do an interview at this time of the week, no matter what is happening. So that way, when I was on the phone with someone, I would ask them, "Can you commit to coming in over the next 7 days for an interview?" And they would say, Sure. And I would say, great. Is this time or this time better? And majority of the time, they would choose from those options. Now, if they didn't, I would then work with them to see what would work. But I knew I had blocked focus time that I could do it. And then as we scaled, we just scaled that principle. And then we added in automations and efficiency tools to make it faster. But really, the principle of that is have targeted tasks, targeted outcomes that you or your team need to hit every week. Make them attainable. If we're talking about KPIs, our KPIs may have looked like um, get a goal of 20 applications in, try to get in touch. That's an uncontrollable. That the goal is to get in touch with 14 of them, to schedule 10 of them in for interviews so that 4 show up and you hire 2. Like that's KPIs, right? That's setting
Hmm.
KPIs of numbers. And sometimes that can get a little overwhelming or in the weeds, and you're like, that gets confusing. You need it, and you need that to scale. Um, but then having those 2 by 2 fun, like just those simple targets that this is the like the foundation, like this is the floor of my expectation of what needs to be hit. So if you have a recruiter, make sure that you're setting that floor of this is the targets that your position needs to hit every single. This isn't a goal. This is the foundation that you're hitting. It's part of what you do, because it will ensure that you are constantly building in systems. And even with that, you'll build in better messaging because you're talking about it more from a standpoint that's not just reactionary of we've got these open shifts. If you can work
Yeah.
it, you're hired. And
Yeah.
so that's something that we have just grown that principle and that method of thinking, that's helped us to consistently recruit every single week. And
Hmm.
we increased our numbers as we increased our company.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes total sense. And it's I think what it reminds me of is this principle of building the muscle in your
Hmm.
business, that it's just like where every week, no matter what. And there may be, and I don't know about you, but this happens, I think, quite a bit. I mean, there may be some weeks where you have fewer clients coming in and you don't
Hmm.
actually need to do that recruiting, and that's where it can sometimes fall off. But if you have that muscle and it's just always happening, it's becomes very, very rare where you're in that position
Yeah.
of being like, my hair is on fire, I need somebody immediately. Because if you've done that hard work of just keeping it going every
Yeah.
week, week over week, your 2 by 2 or whatever your strategy is,
Hmm.
then you've always got somebody
Yeah.
that could be a good fit for what your needs are.
Yes. And when you make it a discipline, what I loved about our team developers when we established the 2 by 2 by 2, and then we would go through those like dry times where we're like, okay, we have 2 caregivers that are already wanting more hours, and
Yeah.
I don't feel like I need to recruit. And then like I would say, okay, this week, why don't you focus your 2 by 2 by 2 with creating conversations? This is a referral partner that's really awesome. They're so great. Why don't you call her and say, hey, listen, I have a rock star team of care providers that have just opened up availability. And if you know any clients who maybe they need care, but they haven't committed yet, or they're a little unsure, or someone that you're like, man, if they just had care, it would increase their outcomes and their quality of life so much. This is a great time. So our recruiter would actually reach out and have some of those conversations because once again, our recruiter is not just a recruiter, they're a team developer. So they know that consistency of hours for those caregivers is a very big retention priority.
Yes. Yeah, totally. Oh my gosh, I love that. That's incredible. Um, so you were talking a little bit about systems. We have been talking about systems and how the whole thing really is a system. Um, so could you maybe share a couple of tips? It's basically like a sales funnel, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Um, so could you maybe share a couple of the tips that you have on selling to caregivers in your hiring funnel?
Yeah. And I will tell you, you're the one way more qualified to talk about a selling and a recruitment funnel. But I'm happy to share just some of uh the principles. One thing I do feel like that recruitment is marketing. Like recruitment is marketing. And if you're not looking at recruitment like marketing, I hope from this standpoint on that you do. Because it doesn't matter how well our marketing is for our clients. If we don't have a steady flow of caregivers, then we're we're not going to be able to deliver to the clients that we put so much effort and time and money into acquiring. And so I look at recruitment as recruitment marketing. So the same funnel that we use for marketing, which is attract, capture, nurture, convert, deliver, and retain. Like that is our marketing funnel. So that's not just our client marketing funnel, it is also our caregiver marketing funnel. So you have to look at really selling to potential caregivers just like you would sell to a client. And you have to start with really knowing like what is the value proposition, meaning you need to clearly be able to say, this is how this role makes your life better. And so often I see job ads and just job ads itself. If I just went into the business of auditing job ads, and I'm sure like that is your business. If I just went into the business of like auditing job ads, I would probably change so many recruiters and team developers and owners' lives. Because when you look at a job ad, the job ad is not the roles and responsibilities. And so often I see roles and responsibilities and job descriptions in a job ad. It is your hook. Like you need to have a hook of how are you hooking that and attracting that right fit caregiver. We talk about right fit clients and ideal clients. You need that same profile of a caregiver so that you can talk to them, hear them, and them hear you. And then once you have attracted them, you've got to capture. What is your mechanism for capturing? If it is 300 steps of capturing their information, or it feels like they're buying a car, you've probably lost them. And not because they weren't good, but because they didn't see the value proposition. And then you've got to nurture them. You've got to have those intentional touch points. You've got to have those intentional touch points of connection, of community, of building trust, because all of those have to happen before you can truly convert them into being a team member. So, truly understanding who they are, how this role is beneficial to them. So, just to put it in tactical terms, like whenever I am talking or I'm creating a job ad or I'm talking to someone, the first thing I'm going to do is really create that hook. Like, what is that message that they want to hear? And for an example, a hook would be most jobs talk about hard work and team spirit or working for purpose. We're here to talk about you. We're here to talk about how you get paid to change lives and grow your skills and still have a schedule that works for your life. If that sounds good, you're a caregiver that we want to speak to. That is a hook.
Uh-huh.
And then
Yeah.
and then it's not the job description that they want. They want to know the offer. If they were a client that you were trying to sell a job to, which they are, you got to know what is the offer. They want to know the pay. They want to know the schedule. They want to know what growth they can expect to have and what is the impact they're going to make. How can you communicate that effectively, quickly, honestly, they don't care about how great you are, how long you've been in business, if it's not a role that they see that's going to benefit their lives. And that's what we like to help like all of the coaching clients that are in our coaching program. Whenever we look at their funnel, a lot of times we're not even trying to identify gaps or how they can create an efficiency plug-in, or even connect. Like we want them connected with Augusta and everything that you do. The first thing we're going to look at first, though, is do you have a hook? Do you have an offer? And do you have a clear why choose us? Like we even say other companies offer jobs. We offer purpose and a path to growth. And here's what makes us different. Are you communicating that? And really quickly, make it simple. We treat you like family because you're taking care of families. We make it easy. The application is fast, the hiring is quick, and we support you every step of the way. And we care about your goals. We want you to grow. We will show you how. you need flexibility, we will make it happen within your availability and our solutions that we offer. Like that is a reason why they would choose us. That was our why choose us statement. And nowhere did I say we had been in business for over 17 years. We're caregiver owned and operated. I worked myself up from a caregiver to a 8-figure multi-state, multi-care business that's now serving thousands of clients. Like I didn't say any of that in the why choose us. It was all about why choose us because of who they are and what they need. And
Yes.
then you can do the what you'll do. You'll have clients every day with daily activities and you'll make someone's day every day. That lets
Huh.
them know we're looking for positive care providers and you're going to be reliable, caring person we can count on. Like that's when you get into the what you'll do. But first, you have to make sure that the value for them is coming through, just like you would an offer stack or a marketing funnel that you do for a client. You do that same thing for your potential care providers that are applying.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You just said so many like just wonderful points. Uh I think the like first off, the positioning of what you're talking about, making it about them and what their needs are, the things that they really care about at the end of the day in a home care related job. Like that's what is the headline, what they want. And I think that is often very, very overlooked. And for me, I think it relates back to hiring to fill shifts,
Mm-hmm.
really. Like the reasons why people sometimes skip that part of the sales process is because they've got their hair on fire, they need to fill a shift. And so then the ad and what they're saying becomes about what the agency's needs are versus what the caregiver's needs are.
Yes. Yeah.
Hmm. I think it's like a byproduct of not having a system. So I think that's like very, very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And definitely, I see so many panic mode job ads, which is odd because when you're panicking, you would think that they would be a like cut through the process. It's like a panic job ad of like filling shifts immediately, apply
Yeah.
here. And then there's like 15 different steps of total constraint.
Yeah.
Rather than either having a clear call to action or such a simple streamlined process that people know, okay, like if their process is that simple and it gives a timeline of this is whenever, how soon someone is going to reach out to you, and this is how quickly the hiring process goes. Like if you are in panic mode, please identify all of those things and let them know in the job ad that we make our process simple, a guaranteed, we would contact you within 24 hours with a scheduled interview within 48 hours with a goal to have you hired in 7 days. Doesn't that
Yes.
sound so much better than filling shifts immediately? And it sounds like this desperate plea of like this, and a lot of times it's overselling. Like we can't guarantee that they're going to have a client every single week in a certain location who knows how to sing kumbaya and will smile pleasantly at them every day. Sometimes I see job ads that they're promising way too much, and internally I'm like, that was one desperate home care owner. Like
Yeah.
they they're willing to throw in all these incentives, or even worse, they will have caregivers that they started out, that good caregivers that have been there for several years, that are, we'll just say a base rate of $15 an hour, $10 an hour, depending on state, wherever you are. But then there'll be these job ads going out that says starting at 16, 17, $18, $2 and $3 an hour more than their dependable caregivers are making, because it's a desperation post.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
And then that hurts retention. I'll
It
just say,
does. It'll come back around to bite you at some point, unfortunately.
yeah.
Um, wow. Okay. Yeah. Um, that was really, really helpful and really interesting. I hope everybody listening is getting some good takeaways from that. So just quick time check here. Okay. So I'm gonna so we when I had sent out the invite to this, I asked folks in advance for questions that they had about recruiting. So there was a couple themes I don't know if we're gonna have time to tackle all of them. We probably won't. But the most common question that people wrote in advance was, where and how do I find reliable caregivers?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I'm just going to tell you that first, ask the right questions. Like the
Yeah.
difference between being good and
Yeah.
being great is the questions that we ask. And
Mhm.
anytime that there's a how or a when and a where, just go ahead and at the beginning and accelerate what you're trying to get to is the who. Who? Who can you connect with that already knows where to find reliable caregivers? Who already has a data bank of knowing how to find reliable caregivers? Who? And I will tell you the difference between really the honest difference between me struggling as a home care owner 17 years ago. I was all about the how. And now the first thing I go to is who. Who already does this? Who can I plug you into? Who is a resource that can help you accelerate that process? Who can help you get clarity on that in a much quicker way? And so really for that, if someone was to ask me, where do I find reliable caregivers? I could give you this big thing of like Indeed and you could go to Facebook communities and social media communities and reach out to your communities. But what I would actually first do is connect you with someone who's doing that full time and they know. And so, Jen, you would be the person that I would be like, have you looked in? Have you connected with Jen over at Augusta Care? Because that's one of the things that they do. So since you do this every day,
Yeah.
probably as we speak, you're making sure it's happening in the background. What would
Yes.
you say? How and where do they find reliable caregivers?
It's a great question. And I would reiterate exactly what you just said is I understand why everybody is asking that specific question, but unfortunately, I don't think it's exactly the right question. And the reason is because I think the reason why people are asking that is because they're hoping that we will share the secret job board where all the caregivers are, and they will be able to just, oh, I can go sign up for that specific, thing to go find more applicants that are higher quality. The reality is that um, the majority of applicants today, and I'm not talking like a small majority, 84% of hires come from Indeed.com. So there's a lot of great ways to recruit. But when we're talking about finding reliable caregivers, is really about optimizing the who of who you're looking for and the resources that are here that actually already work, that we know work. So I wish I could say that there was another magic kind of pool of caregivers out there that nobody else has heard of and that I'm going to share as a secret today. But that's not really the case. The fact is that there's a few kind of key sources of applicants. And then the questions are really, how are you optimizing the process? And who are you really looking for? And like, what is your caregiver MVP? Who is that person that like that criteria that you're trying to match to? Um, so yeah, I guess the answer to the question is kind of like another set of questions of like where are you advertising today and who are you looking for and how are you optimizing that process?
Yeah. It
Yeah.
really is. And I love it how you shaped it with, is that really the real question? Like, where do you find? So, because it's not only about knowing which platform to find it on. Obviously, I love that you have the data, you're doing it every day. Indeed is going to probably cut down on a lot of all the organic tips that I could give you. But even at the end of the day, what you put on Indeed, how are you hooking them? How are you attracting the right fit? It all goes down to building that trust and really showcasing that value proposition, the purpose of them applying for you with you. So, and I love that. So now you know the where is the Indeed, and now
Yeah.
it's really refining. And like she said, like with Augusta, they have refined the process, so it's going to be a whole lot faster, easier, simpler, and a lot less headache on you. And so I love going to the who first, and then if there are budget constraints, or things that is a constraint between where I am now and where I am, then I always ask the question, even if there is some type of budget constraint, what can I do right now so that I can increase my hires, so that I can have more revenue, so that 6 weeks from now we can revisit this conversation. Like when there is a solution, put a path in place to grab a hold of that
Mm.
solution and don't let it be a constraint. So
Yeah.
I love that. That was the perfect answer.
What?
Great job, Jen.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Thank you. So related, actually, the next most common question that people are asking is how do I reduce no-shows and ghosting?
Yeah. I,
And it's kind of baked into that first question that everybody asks of how do I find the reliable caregivers, right?
yeah.
Um, anyways, so yeah,
Well, I know that that's something that y'all really
it
like.
is.
That's what y'all
Yeah.
specialize in. So
Yes.
what would you tell them on that question?
So that for me is really, I mean, the how comes in, or the who question, it comes into the idea of where do I find the reliable caregivers. Um, but for me, that's really where the who totally comes in, is that I think when people are asking about how I reduce no-shows, I have several questions back to them,
Hmm.
basically. The first one is, who are you inviting to an interview? And kind of relatedly, what type of interview is it? But really, the meat of it is who are you inviting to an interview? And what I mean by that is that you really need to have an MVP, a set of criteria that is consistent across your recruiting system, your hiring funnel, in terms of how you evaluate who is actually invited to an interview. And it's super important because, okay, let me let me give an example real quick. Okay, so I have a client in Florida who has a territory or a service area where his office is on one side. Pretty much all of his caregivers live on the other side of a river that goes through his territory. So he was basically inviting everybody into an in-person interview. That was his strategy. Everybody comes in for an in-person interview. Maybe they get a call ahead of time. What we realized though is that everybody on the other side of the river, where the caregivers live, they didn't want to cross the bridge to get into his office. I know it's like one of those psychological things. Probably everybody in the room has a bridge in their city that nobody wants to cross for whatever reason. So with Augusta, what we ended up doing with him is our software geolocates where applicants are related to both your office and your clients. So for him, basically, we were able to adjust his geolocation so that way only the people who lived in the right location to come in for an in-person appointment were invited. Basically, everybody else was treated differently. They were still contacted, but treated differently. So I guess that's and I know maybe that doesn't sound exactly like the who, but it literally is. I mean, it's like where they live is where the caregiver lives, easy to get to come into that interview.
Yeah.
Is it going to be, do they understand the benefits and the pay and all that stuff as well? So it's really, but if you don't know exactly how close the caregiver lives to your office before you invite them to an interview, then you've kind of invited one of the wrong who's basically for that type of interview.
Yes.
So
I love that because one of the most important things to like setting up a really good recruitment funnel is you have like once you do like this is how I'm going to capture them. This is how I'm going to qualify them. So that qualifying process is so important. And then you have an elimination process. And a lot of home care agencies, whenever we go in and look at like what is their recruitment funnel, they don't actually have a qualifying and elimination process. So the elimination process literally is who shows up and who doesn't. So to them, they're frustrated. Why am I having so many no call, no shows? You just saved money on an elimination process, but so much better. There's so many better ways to actually intentionally create an elimination process and a qualifying process. And like that's one of the things that Jen, I know y'all got so good at is you have a qualifying process and elimination process before it becomes a no-show.
Exactly. That's the who of it. I mean, from our perspective is, and I'll tell you that client, when we adjusted his geolocation, I mean, his all of a sudden almost no-shows to
Yeah.
interviews because it was the right people getting the right type of interview for them,
Yeah.
basically. Anyways, so that's part of what I think is going into no-shows is literally who is actually being invited and what type of interview is it. The other thing that I think is really important related to no-shows is also goes back to selling candidates on the job, is
Mm-hmm.
that for better or for worse, today, caregivers get absolutely bombarded with offers. They get so many emails and so many text messages about potential jobs that it is truly very hard to stand out to the
Yes.
caregiver. They may skim the job description and they don't like fully absorb it because they got 20 emails from the job board saying they can one click apply over and
Yeah.
over and over again. So, making sure that the caregivers really understand what they are applying for is also super, super important to reducing no-shows.
Mm-hmm.
And what we found at Augusta is that we have to communicate in a really different way to applicants what they're actually applying for. So when they're looking at an Augusta job posting, what they see, like first and foremost, are what the benefits are to them, like so pay, their career ladder, all the things that they want, in a bulleted fashion, so that way they can literally. I mean, we're talking the top 6 reasons why they should talk to you, basically. And then the next thing that they see is a map of exactly where they will be working for this job with like it's circled. Like you're going to work somewhere in this 10-mile radius, you know? Because otherwise they didn't get the right information to know whether or not they want to have that first conversation, which
Yeah.
that's like I mean once you get them into that first conversation you can do all the important powerful human work of like understanding who they are better and like thinking about who they would match with in your client base and all that, but like to get them to the point of not ghosting you through the interview process and just to that first interview, they really need to understand some basic stuff, and you need to be able to communicate it in a way that's really different. And we at Augusta, we do that. Our assumption when we built the product basically was that they're not going to read the job description. So we need to make sure that they understand visually, like seeing it with pictures and tiny little bits of information that are going to resonate with them in terms of wanting to actually talk to at that first interview.
Yeah.
So
I
making sure they understand what they're applying for,
I love
basically.
that. That's so good. I remember whenever we were working on our no call no shows, because I mean it's no secret in this industry we have a lot. There's a huge ratio of no call no shows. Thankfully we don't, like, we got to the point we didn't struggle with that anymore. But we began calling all of the applicants back that no called no showed and said, hey, I noticed you no called no showed, and I know when you're applying and looking for a caregiver position, very very often you end up showing up and it's not what you wanted. They didn't give you the hours. You had to wait around for shifts. So I realized that may be a reflection of that. So whether you're still interested in a position in our company or not, what is a bit of information that we could have give you up front that would have made you realize this is a different kind of company. This is the company I want to work for. And we did that with every no call, no show for over a period of like 6 weeks. And that's one of the ways we got so much better at understanding this is how our messaging should be. This is what it should be in it. This is how to communicate with them. And very reflective to what you guys have created at Augusta Care. You've done it so many times that you refine it every single time based off what the data, the actual show up, not show up data is, and the actions that resulted in that. So
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Well, I just looked at the clock and we are just about at time here, so going about to go over time. So, um, do you have any final kind of parting thoughts for everybody today?
yeah, when it comes to recruiting, really think of it as marketing. Put the same amount of effort, attention, investment, love, care, nurture in recruiting as you do acquiring clients, because you cannot do one without the other. And be intentional about it. Focus in on really getting the communication that's connective and reflective of who you actually want to hire. And when you recruit, look at it as your biggest retention model. Retention starts the second you write that job ad and put it out into the world. So that's my key tips for recruiting. Recruit to retain. Be intentional with all the actions, every bit of communication, and don't pretend or act like you have to know it all. One of the things that I did when I started growing is realizing that I could do a lot of organic, highly labor intensive things, and it could work and it would work and it did work to a certain level, but then I had to get efficiency. I had to get more automation, more effective, proven systems and outsourcing that could come in and help me to grow and scale faster. And so I would say prioritize that as an investment, because nobody gets successful without making some sacrifices and making some big investments. So you either invest with time, mistakes, experience, or you can invest by getting there faster, easier, and simpler. And that goes back to the who. Who can help you get there faster, easier, and simpler?
Love it. Thank you so much, Jessica. This was wonderful. It's so great to talk with you. Um, if folks want to get in touch with you with Home Care Ops, what are the best ways for them to do that?
Yeah, I think the best way just to get plugged into Home Care Ops is we have a community on Facebook. So if you're active on Facebook, and that's where a lot of people like to do all their social life, you can just go and search Home Care Owners Community. And there we have over 9,000 home care owners and operators, and you can ask questions. Go ask recruiting questions there. If you had questions for me and it wasn't answered here, just go to Home Care Owners Community and uh, plug in there, ask your question there. I'm in there. Like when we have a recruiting question, I can always ask Jen and be like, Jen, we need your expertise on this. So that's a great place to get not only connected with me, but just a whole network of support and resources, inspiration, and aspiration even.
Right. That is awesome. That Facebook community is really incredible. I mean, there's so much activity, so many owners in there and operators who are asking, I think, a lot of questions that everybody else is dealing with, and like really supporting each other and finding it's another way to find the who's that are going to be able to help you.
Yes.
So I think that is awesome, and I can attest it is a really wonderful community. So thank you so much, Jessica. You are awesome, and this was wonderful. For anybody who's still listening in, this was recorded. I'm going to have it up on our website in a couple days, and we'll email it out with links to the Home Care Ops community.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Cool, thanks. Bye, everybody.